I'm Vanessa. I'm based in California, like I mentioned. I'm a facilitator and trainer for many years, and more recently been in the Management 3.0 community. I've worked with international teams and focusing a lot on team culture, and also personal leadership has been a big part of my background, and excited to be sharing what Management 3.0 has to offer for agile teams or non-agile teams who are looking to move more towards lean ways of approaching work. And Alex and I are part of, like I said, the Happy Melly community. And we've partnered up today to talk a little bit about delegation. And Alex, I'll let you introduce yourself too.
Great. Thanks, Vanessa. Before I do that, can everyone see the big slide that says intros and then has Vanessa's and my name on it? I see some nodding. I'll take that as a general yes. My name's Alex Harden. Like I mentioned, I'm up in the Milwaukee area in Wisconsin, in the U.S. My background is in software development. I've been working with software development teams, agile teams, for the last 8 years or so, filling a variety of roles. But most recently, over the last 3 or 4 years, have been trying to lead our team through the process of adopting more of these modern management techniques, and creating a much more sort of collaborative and engaging culture for our team. So that's really a passion of mine, and that's why I got interested in what we're talking about today, and why I think it's definitely valuable to try to share these ideas with as many people as possible. Okay. So Vanessa, do you have any other introductory comments, or should we keep trucking?
Yeah, let's keep moving. And if you want to add in the chat, you could also let us know how familiar you are with Management 3.0, if it's very new, or you're kind of experienced and you just want to know a little bit more about delegation. So you can also add that into the chat, and we can gauge the conversation about how in depth we go or how much we just do overview. We can kind of cater the insights that we share towards the audience. So feel free to add that in chat now. And yeah, let's keep moving. Okay,
great. So I like to introduce things that we're talking about here with sort of the backdrop of why Vanessa and I think that this is important, why it's a part of Management 3.0, why Management 3.0 exists, and all that. So to kind of wrap it up in a nutshell, the reason for Management 3.0 and consequently delegation poker, which is what we're talking about today, is based on a number of premises. One being that management as we know it today in the workplace is really pretty outdated. Management was created. Management as we know it today was really created much earlier on in sort of the progression of business and industry, and it's gotten to the point where it's not really relevant to a lot of the work that's being done these days. If you think of the way that management worked in say the early 20th century, a lot of it was based on factories and a little bit more assembly line type work. You look at scientific management and Taylorism, things like that. It was all based on optimizing people's work down to the movement. Moving things from this shelf to that shelf, or this assembly line to this other assembly line as quickly as possible, with really no room for creativity. And it worked, and it was relevant for the times back then. But what I'm guessing the majority of us on this call today are a little bit more accustomed to is more knowledge work, more creative work, that doesn't really benefit from that super precise style of management that tells you exactly how to do things to be as efficient as possible. Modern work, this creative knowledge work, benefits a lot more from people being engaged in their work, having fun doing what they're doing, and having sort of a sense of autonomy over what they're doing as well, so that we can actually own the work that we're doing rather than be told specifically how to do it. So that's sort of the backdrop for some of this, that the tools, if you're a manager, the tools that you've been given as a manager, or if you're not a manager, the tools that your manager has been given to manage are very, very likely not really up to date with a lot of more modern science, more modern thinking on how people can get engaged with their work. And I'll kind of stop with the theory right there. But if you're interested in that, definitely take a look at the Management 3.0 book, because the first couple of chapters in particular go much further in depth into sort of that backdrop of, okay, here's where we came from as business people, as managers, as leaders in organizations. Here's kind of where we've gone, and here's where we are today, and here are the gaps. Just let you read this quote because it's kind of interesting. I don't like using parent-child metaphors for management because it's kind of weird. But it's an interesting way to look at it and sort of understand things are kind of broken. If you even could construe a management relationship as this goofy looking picture that you're seeing here with the guy with the mustache and the propeller head on a leash, if that's kind of your view of management, then there's probably something wrong. And that is part of what we're trying to fix with Management 3.0 is figure out a way to get rid of this mentality of management and update it with something a little bit more relevant to the types of work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of my favorite quotes from Dan Pink. He wrote the book Drive. He's got a great TED Talk. And, management is not a tree. It's not something that's grown innately out of nature and it's just the way it is. He says it's more like a television set. It's something that we invented in the 20th century. And so it doesn't mean it's going to work forever. And we need to reinvent it and create a new paradigm and a new framework. And so Delegation Poker is a new framework in looking at delegating work. And just to kind of build off of what Alex was saying, we have the opportunity to look at, what hasn't been working. And I'm sure many of you have heard that the statistics of disengaged workforce are a huge concern for HR, for business leaders. I heard last night on a podcast I was listening to that they estimate just in the United States that over $500 billion is lost every year in productivity because of disengagement. And so this parent-child paradigm of the past obviously has dire consequences on the happiness of workers. And that's a lot of where Jürgen Appelo, who's the author of Management 3.0, came up with the concept of Happy Melly. And the Happy Melly website, it's happymelly.com, has a really great explanation of where the name came from, who's Melly, and why does she need to be happy at work. So just with a quick temperature gauge in the room, if you wanted to add into chat or just raise your hand if you've ever had a manager that treated you with a lack of respect or like you weren't as competent as you are. So put a Y in chat or just raise your hand. I'll put up 2 hands because I was driven to this work because I suffered, from every job I've ever had in a company, there's been poor management. So what do we do when a manager says, I would like to improve my approach, but what do I do next? And this is where Management 3.0 is applicable practices and exercises that anybody can pick up and can improve how they approach things. Yeah.
Lots of Y's.
I didn't see any no's. And any N's. There's lots of Y's happening around here. Is that why they're called Generation Y?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So hopefully there's some good nuggets that you can take out of this. And if you're in a position where you can do some of what you're learning here and what you continue to learn, looking, like Vanessa said, at the the Happy Melly site or reading some of these other books. This is all stuff that's very, very accessible, very very easy to kind of try. Vanessa described this as a framework. So we'll get into delegation poker in just a couple of minutes, and it's described as a game, and we'll kind of talk about the gamey nature of it. But really what delegation poker is, and what the rest of Management 3.0 is that framework, a sort of a different way of thinking about management and just going about work. So even if you don't use delegation poker or some of the other tools and techniques in Management 3.0, kind of if you don't use them by the book, you've at least got that paradigm in your head of being able to think, well, yeah, I'm not gonna pick up these cards and play poker with them. But I can at least think through how might I delegate this? What are the ramifications of me delegating this or not, or delegating it partially? So that's kind of what we're hoping you'll take away from this. And just to add a little bit to what Vanessa was saying about Management 3.0, it's meant to be an upgrade. Okay, so we won't go any more into the background, but if you look at the book. Jurgen lays out this idea of Management 1.0 and then Management 2.0, and now obviously where we're at now, which would be Management 3.0. And the focus of this newer version, if you will, is really engaging people and giving managers and organizations the tools that they need to kind of recognize the full creative and productive potential of people, rather than sort of subverting people via more traditional management techniques. Won't spend a ton of time on this, but just because it's kind of fun looking. This is a little monster named Marty. He or she, I don't know that it's established, is the Management 3.0 monster, and the 6 eyes of Marty kind of represent the different views of management according to Management 3.0. I don't need to read through all of them. You can kind of see them here. What we're going to really touch on with delegation poker is empowering teams. The idea behind delegation poker is, as a manager, I need a tool to delegate, and I'm going to delegate so that I can give my team or this person or my team member more authority over some activity or some decision. So I'm therefore empowering the team.
Yeah, and just one comment I was going to say. So Management 3.0 is looking at the reality that you cannot actually manage people, but you can manage and set up the system. So a manager's role would be to manage the system. And this comes out of complexity thinking, which we'll give you a reading list afterwards if you're interested. And so managing the system would look at these 6 things, grow the structure, develop competence, empower the team, and so forth. So lots of content. This is just one little fraction that we're looking at today.
Yep. Yeah, and kind of mentioned this briefly here, but empowering teams is about establishing, or I should say, further establishing the trust relationship between management and people. If the kind of the high level theory being, if a manager is able to delegate more authority, more ability to make decisions and do work autonomously to a team or an individual, that should bolster some of the trust between the team and the manager, or the individual and the manager. And further, having more authority, or talking about authorization, having more authority over the work that you're doing plays into a lot of the motivational thought process and theories in like Drive. Vanessa mentioned Dan Pink, who has a TED Talk in the book Drive. One of the core principles of Drive is this idea of autonomy, and that people are at their most motivated and sort of creative potential when they have three things. One of those things is autonomy, the ability to make decisions and do work unencumbered by process or people or by a manager. So delegation poker is trying to recognize that fact, that autonomy is good. providing a little bit more authority to people is good. And delegation poker tries to give a little bit of structure around how a manager or someone who's in a position to delegate can effectively provide that authority or that autonomy.
Okay, so just give us a second and reflect on your company or a team that you're in, your household even, a sports team that you're participating on, even a musical group. Who delegates to whom in those situations? And feel free to leave a comment or two. And I'm going to just be silent here for about 20 seconds to let you reflect and think about it, because it took me a minute. When somebody first asked me this question, I thought, well, let me think about that, because we delegate and we deal with delegation sometimes on autopilot. So I'm just going to be shut up for a minute now and let you reflect, and feel free to add your comments in chat. Okay, so I see Sarah said that she has a boss who delegates the processes to her. Okay. Durgesh is an Agile coach and Management 3.0 practitioner. So who delegates in that situation? Sandeep, you said you're a coach. I coach to collaborate. Okay. And so my question there would be, well, isn't delegation part of the collaboration process? So how are you delegating through your collaborations? Okay, so just keep on reflecting on this question. I think it's important because we go through our day-to-day work, and like I said, autopilot is really natural given the situations of high pressure, deadlines and so on. So this is an opportunity to slow down and look at the framework of the 7 levels of delegation. So delegation is often thought of as either I tell you to do it or I do it. And so we think of it as maybe a binary thing. But what really it is that there's much more color. So here we have this great slide where delegation is not just either you do it or I do it. It's a variety of options. You can be a dictator or you can be an anarchist, and there's many different steps in between. But in a lighter sense, the 7 steps of delegation are breaking down into a framework. And what I love about frameworks is that they help create alignment with a shared language. It's a framework that a team can understand together. You could decide upon 26 levels of delegation, but that's a little bit too much complexity. Oversimplifying to just 2 levels would be too simple. So when we're dealing with complexity, we want to also have a dynamic system. So delegation poker is just that. And so we'll go through the 7 different levels quickly so that you can get a sense, and then we're going to give you a couple case studies and examples of how this works. So level 1 delegation would be to tell. So I tell you to do it, and I've made the decision what needs to be done. This maybe could sound a bit kind of like your typical type of delegation, the autopilot perhaps. But there's also, as we mentioned, many other levels. So Alex, what's number 2?
Yep. So two is referred to as sell. And just note, because it's kind of hard when you're not looking at all of them at the same time, note the little heads on each of these cards. The M is going to get smaller, and the little dude with the kind of poofy hair is going to get a little bit bigger, representing the level of authority that the manager is giving up. So sell is one step closer to complete delegation than tell was. So instead of the manager saying do X, Y, and Z this particular way, the manager is going to try to sell it a little bit to get a little bit of commitment or involvement from the person or team that the manager is delegating to. So saying this is what we're going to do. I've more or less made the decision as the manager or as the delegator, but I'm not just going to tell you do it and don't ask why. I'm going to tell you do this and here's why. Here's my thinking. I'm gonna kind of sell you a little bit on the idea.
Right, so there's a little bit more involvement in level 2 from the team. So number 3 is to consult. So, I would ask for input. I'd say, what do you think? And I'd say, okay, I'll consider this. but ultimately I will be the one to make the decision. Again, I've allowed the team to feel like they're contributing and have some opportunity to influence the final decision. And then level 4 is one that Alex and I used a lot in our work together, where we just would agree. And so we came together, here's the situation, and like Alex mentioned, with these 2 photos where there's the manager with the blue hat and the other person, so their faces are equal sized. So it's equal collaboration and equal decision-making power, I guess, or authority, I should say. Yep.
And five referred to as advise, is where the opinion of the manager is still taken into account, but at the end of the day, it's actually the team's decision, or the person that's being delegated to. It's that person's decision. I find this one useful, where the manager maybe has a background in the area, sort of the subject matter. So let's say it's a software development team. Maybe the manager has a background in software development, which isn't always the case, but maybe she does. So she has a little bit of experience in a decision that's being made. She doesn't want to make the decision, though, because she's not going to be doing the work. Her team's actually going to be doing the work. So she feels that it would be best to let the team make the call and figure out how a certain problem is going to be solved. But since she has that background, she has a little bit of advice. She could advise them a little bit, because she feels like, well, I've actually done this before. Let me at least share my thoughts with you. Let me tell you maybe how I would have done this back when I was doing these things. Take it under advisement if you want, but at the end of the day, team, it's your call.
Yeah, so 6 would be that you hand over the authority to the team, and you say, look, you are going to make the decision, and then I would like for you to come back and tell me what the decision was and help me to buy into it. So I want you to convince me why this was the appropriate decision, and why I should feel at ease and continue to have trust that the team's completely capable of working without my authority. And it can be also an exercise in gradually reducing the amount of control the manager has and empowering the team. So these levels are also contextually relevant. So the maturity of the team, or the how long that they've been given this kind of authority. It's not advised to, as anybody that's worked in an agile transformation, that on Monday you're not waterfall and on Tuesday you're agile. It's a process, and so these levels of delegation might be used differently based on the situation and the timing of the development of the team into more self-organized patterns. And then the final, level 7, Alex, I'll delegate that one to you.
Well played. Yeah, so 7 is fully delegated. So this is the far end of the spectrum. We started with number 1, which, if you recall, was tell. I am telling you, you're going to do X, Y, Z, and this, and maybe even this is how you're going to do it. So pretty extreme. A lot of authority on the manager side. 7 is the complete opposite of that. It's I as a manager, I don't even know what we're talking about. I don't know what this decision is. I don't know how to do this task. Furthermore, I just know that you, team, you're going to make a better decision than I am. You're going to actually do this work, so you're going to own it. It's better if you make the call anyways. So I'm going to fully delegate this to you. This is a number 7. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you even what to do. And I'm not going to come and bug you after you get started. That's a 7. Note that there's still, and for some of you on this call, this may seem a little extreme, a little loose. Like, well, how do you know what they're actually going to do? What if, if they go the wrong direction? There's still guidance, there's constraints, and a general vision for where we're going. And that's where good leaders come in, is having the ability to establish a direction and a vision without having to tell people how to do their work. And in fact, if you recall back to Marty, the little monster, one of the eyeballs on Marty was called align constraints. And what that gets into is the manager's responsibility to establish the general direction of the organization or of the team. So that if I'll keep using the software team, if we're a software development team, I need to be able to establish that, we're building software, we're not building skateboards here. So that if I do delegate things at a 7, I at least know that we're going in the direction of software, and we're not going to go totally off the wall into some new territory that's just not aligned with the vision of the business.
Yeah, and so the idea of self-organizing teams is that there's going to be fewer managers, and so good managers know that they need to delegate as much as possible. But this framework of the 7 levels gives, like I said, a shared language and a safe way for the team to evolve into being more autonomous and managing delegation on their own. So it's a little by little process. And I was just looking at what the questions. Yeah, Darius wants to know if we'll have Q&A. We definitely have budgeted for some time for that. And Sarah, I just have to point out, she said I was at an organization where the only thing that was a level 7 was the opportunity to go to the bathroom. So yes, and some places I'm sure even then you have to ask for permission. So that's why we're here, because this is such a dilemma that so many organizations have. And even for well-intentioned organizations, which we would put at what we'd call management 2.0, so well-intentioned but still doing things the wrong way, these tools and exercises are really great to help move things along. So this is our to-do list for Alex and I when we came together and decided, hey, let's run delegation poker session as a team. We hadn't done this previously. We had a call, and then Alex created a Google Doc, and he put in what he was willing to do, and then I filled in and did what I was willing to do. And then there was a few things that we both would contribute to. And in the process of preparing for today, we thought, this looks a little bit like we're not applying the 7 levels of delegation. Seems like we're just, doing kind of level 1 or level 7. We're doing this binary, like either I'm telling you to do it or I'm saying I'm going to do it. There was no agreement of, I'll report back, or I'll try and convince you, or I'll inform you of what happened. And so this was the culture of our relationship that Alex and I created just by autopilot. So that was okay, but if we started to work on more and more complex projects, or if we were running a course that was in person together, where then there's maybe more opportunities for breakdown in trust or feelings to be coming up, if I'm feeling I'm doing more than my fair share, or if Alex feels that there's not good communication. So let's slow things down and take a look and see, okay, right, so we've got the 7 levels of delegation at the top, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is what we'd call a delegation grid or a delegation board. This is a virtual version, but we've seen teams do it up on the wall on a whiteboard. We have some photos in a minute. So I said, okay, great. So setting up Eventbrite, I put that as level 3, because I'm going to basically just consult what I think, and then have him take a look and see if there's anything he wants to add, and that's it. You can see there's a variety of levels of delegation we used, and a majority of it was kind of collaborative. So level 3 and 4 were popular for us. And then level 7, just go do it. I don't need to know that you did it. Just make it happen. I trust you. So for things like Twitter and LinkedIn. But if one of us had a different personality, I might say, oh, well, maybe I'd like to see what kind of visual images we're sharing on Twitter, just in case I have a better photo. Maybe I'm really, passionate about design, and I don't want, kind of a scrappy picture going out with my name on it, something like this. Maybe they can seem petty, but if we're able to just establish like these agreements, it also helps to get out of any assumptions that we might have had that I didn't actually remember to say, oh, well, actually, I would like you to inform me, or I would like you to consult with me before doing that. And this can be a really great habit to reduce conflict and empower better communication before issues arise. And that allows us to work more swiftly and more effectively, which everybody wants to do more and more, faster and faster.
Yeah, and this is just add a couple of things to that. This is a really good example of how this concept of the framework can be used, and using the delegation poker cards, or just the sort of the numbers, the 1 through 7, and the meaning that comes along with them, can be used for a variety of purposes. And Vanessa and I actually talked about this a bit when we talked about using this example in this webinar itself. Talked about, well, it's a little bit different though, because Vanessa and I were really a team just working together on this. I wasn't Vanessa's manager. Vanessa wasn't my manager. We were just kind of getting this done together. Is it relevant? And we decided, well, yeah, it actually is very relevant, and it's a great example of where this can be used outside of a manager to team or manager to team member relationship. Another way that you could use something like this is on a team. If you're in some sort of a leadership role, or even not, you're a member of a team, and you're having some of these communication issues like Vanessa described. There's a lack of expectations. You don't really know, who's doing what. If I'm going to make this decision, do I need to get Sam's input on it, or can I just make this decision? Or if I'm going to make this decision, do I even need to tell anyone at all? Do I have complete authority to just go off and do it without involving anyone? So a team can use this sort of thing and sort of put up their top 10 things of activities and decisions that are routine to that team, and kind of map out, collaboratively agree, okay, these sorts of things, if we're gonna change the process that we're using for this has got to be a 4. We've all got to be on the same page. But if someone's just gonna make a minor tweak to maybe a document that we use as a team, that's really a 6. If someone's going to change a document, they should just go ahead and do it. The rest of the team's probably going to inquire and just see, okay, hey, what's up? What did you change? Can you fill us in? But they don't need to get permission. They don't need to consult with someone. There doesn't need to be any agreement. There can be a pretty high level of authority there. So sure. Hopefully that's a good example of how applicable this is.
Yeah, and so the other element of this that's really great is that it is a symmetrical model. So it works in both directions. And so you might have noticed that consulting is kind of the opposite of advise. So is it the manager telling the team, I've made the decision and I will tell you, or is it the opposite and the team will make the decision and they will tell the manager? So there's not always a situation, like Alex said, where it's a manager and team. This is also applicable in a peer relationship. And it raises our awareness of our preferences, which also in a team that has diversity, maybe your natural habit is someone who is has seniority or more authority in the organization than me. I am expecting them that anything they tell me, I need to then go back and inform them what I've done. Whereas maybe in another culture, in a team culture or national culture, your personality style influences it. You might know that, no, if somebody tells me to do something, I'm extremely diligent and I just run and do it. And why would I have to go back and tell you? Are you trying to micromanage me? So this allows us to raise our awareness of self and be forming clarity. And diverse teams are wonderful for the innovation and things they can contribute, but clarity and a focus on good communication. And so this is really a communication framework as well. I wanted to I think we have a slide here for just some discussion a bit about something that you recently delegated. Like I said, it could be at home, work, personal time, a friend's time, and what level did you use? I was just thinking, even have you been at a restaurant where you said, you know what, why don't you just order 5 things and we share all of the plates? I'm going to delegate out that responsibility and maybe I'll inquire or I'll consult and I'll say, actually, I don't like whatever ingredient. So we're doing this all the time, but this adds a bit of clarity. Encore, thank you so much for joining. And I just saw that you mentioned advise. Would you like to unmute yourself and share the situation? And
yes, Tanisha, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. There's a bit of background noise, but let's see. If you speak up, we could probably hear your story.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, better.
Okay, so this is just before joining the meeting. We are going to have our production release and 3 days or 4 days, but there is some environmental problem which team was trying to take the decision. They were not able to come to the conclusion, so I tried to advise them that we need to take up it to the higher management because we are not able to get it done. So because they were not able to take it to the higher management, that was the major problem because of which we are not able to solve the problem. So I advised them that this should be the approach. We should reach out to some member in the leadership team so that this problem can be resolved.
So it sounds like there was a situation where you gave your perspective through level 5 advise, but
yes.
Then ultimately the team got to decide whether they listened or they decided that wasn't the best next step.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Anka, for that example. And if you could just mute yourself again, thanks so much for contributing. And feel free, if there's anybody else, mention in chat if they want to share a story. I just have one that I could use as well. Pandora, are you familiar with the music radio, online radio channel? And so they are extremely agile, and their head of HR decided they were doing away with the annual peer review structure. And they wanted to make it into a self-organized, peer-to-peer, 3 times a year feedback opportunities. But they completely gave it over to the team. They gave a structure. They said, this is what you should do. And they should be 5 minutes, one person speaks, and then 5 minutes the other one speaks. It's a fast interaction, and we do it in September and I think January and May, 3 times a year, the whole company. Now, so this is a situation where they didn't elaborate in the discussion whether or not it was a level 6, where they would then inquire, the management, so the head of HR would inquire and say, what did you decide to do? Did you do your peer review or not? So that would be level 6. If the HR said, no, it's level 7 delegation, you go do it, you don't have to report back to me, it just happens and I don't know anything about it. And so when they're launching this program, if they had used the 7 steps of delegation, they could have informed the team, okay, so we're going to use level 3 or level 6, so that there was clarity among their organization of, okay, so we're doing self-organized peer reviews, but then what happens? I have to tell you? Because it's self-organized, we're not obligated, we get to decide, but should I come back to you and let you know we did it? Do we get extra points for doing it? Or, how does this work? So that was one area that a story that I heard about an organization trying to really empower self-delegation, but maybe there could be some improved clarification. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the, dialogue around launching this program, that those were types of questions that people were asking, but maybe they didn't have a framework to ask the question in a very simple way that everybody could easily understand. Okay, great. This is level 6 delegation. Got it. See you later. Any other stories from the group we've got here? I know there's a lot of wisdom in the room. Alex and I are just here to facilitate an opportunity for a discussion. Give you another minute to jump in here.
While we're waiting, if anyone else wants to think of something to share, I'll just explain how I've used these cards or this model in the past. At my last job with my boss, Chris, he in his office, he simply on his whiteboard, he had these cards, and I've got a stack of them right here. He just had them magneted up up onto the whiteboard, laid out horizontally, so you could kind of see 1 through 7 the scale. And we didn't really play a game with the cards. We didn't take them down and hold them up or try to guess what everyone was going to pick or anything like that. We simply had them on the wall. So as he and I were maybe talking about, hey, there's this new thing is coming up. One of our teams is going to do this new thing on a project. How do we go about that? We maybe one of us had some ability to help them, or maybe it was the sort of thing where, you know what, they know what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense for us to stick our noses into this activity, so we'll make it a 7. Or maybe it was a situation where a more inexperienced person on the team wanted to try out a new role. Someone was maybe a developer and wanted to try to do user experience or quality assurance testing or something else like that. And that person was maybe looking for a progression, a career plan for, okay, I'm doing this, I'd like to be doing that. How do I get there? What's the plan that I can have? That was the sort of thing where we'd look up at the delegation cards and say, well, look, this person's a little bit less experienced. We probably shouldn't expect him or her to have a great deal of insight into this conversation because they simply haven't done it before. Let's make this conversation a 2 or a 3 or maybe even a 1 based on the situation, so that we could help that person and set them up for success. So again, we didn't really play a game with the cards. We simply had them constantly accessible. So as we were talking about things that started to get into the realm of delegation or distributing autonomy and authority throughout the team, we had a nice, clean, very easy to understand model and framework to help guide our conversation.
Yeah, I love that story that, it helps empower the success of the variety of skill sets, comfort levels, and so on. And so one way also to do this was, the delegation board, which I think we have a slide here, right, of a whiteboard. Yep.
Jump ahead a couple, yeah.
Oh, okay, so sorry, kind of jumped ahead here. So this is just a really fast and easy, maybe you're having a discussion in a meeting, say, well, why don't we set up a delegation board really quick and just see if that helps us. And we can move things around. You can give people different colored pens. They go and mark which one they believe it should be at. And, this can be a visual way to get engagement. Additional way, of course, is when you have everybody has a deck, and like I've got mine here too, and maybe you're having a planning meeting, or you're organizing an event, or there's a big new product launch that you're going to be preparing, and you sit around a table or stand up and everybody has their deck. You go point by point. What is it that needs to be delegated? And it's like poker, right? So I'm going to pick this card, and everybody puts their card out at the same time. Everybody has a different card and has the opportunity to speak up and voice why they feel that way, and then have the opportunity to sell their point or convince others or inquire for more details. And again, opens up great dialogue and breaks down the opportunity for mistrust and communication to be an issue. But Alex, I know I jumped ahead. If you had another great slide.
Let's slide back to this one. Yeah, we're running low on time, so I won't go into the nuts and bolts, but I'll explain at high level. Many of you are probably familiar with this graph. This is, if not, this is called the Dreyfus model. Or the Dreyfus model of skills acquisition, I think is the full name of it. And it's a studied, researched model. I didn't make this up or anything like that. And what it shows is if you look at the blue words that kind of go up in an arc throughout the middle, it's showing the level of experience of a person. So going from novice up to competent to an expert. And that could be the experiences in a particular thing. So a software developer's experience in designing software or designing user interfaces or architecting software, for example. There's a skill level for each one of those activities. And what the rest of the model shows is that as an individual progresses along that path, the quality of decisions, if you look along the top, goes up. So if someone is a novice, they're probably going to make lower quality decisions just simply because they haven't done it. They haven't done something before. They need to stub their toe a couple of times before they learn where all the pitfalls are and how to make good decisions. By the time they get up to that expert level, though, presumably they've done whatever we're talking about dozens or hundreds of times. They truly are completely competent in this, so they're going to make great decisions. On the left side, you see what's referred to as rules. And what you see is the amount of rules going down as the level of experience goes up. So if someone is a novice in something, it says every step by rule. So if someone's a novice, they're going to need a lot more guidance. Again, they haven't done it before. It'd be silly to expect someone who's a novice to make a great decision and figure out exactly how to do it. You really should give them some guidance in order to, again, set them up for success. However, if someone's an expert, they probably don't need any rules. If I'm managing someone who's an expert in something, I probably should tell them very, very little about how they should do their job, because presumably they're very likely actually better at whatever we're talking about than I am. So the number of rules that they're going to need is extremely low. We incorporated this in here because the delegation model 1 through 7 fits right along with this. And as Vanessa mentioned several minutes ago, this model is contextual. You need to also think about the level of experience or skills that someone has when you think about delegation. And a 7 may make more sense for an expert, whereas a 1 is a little bit more applicable to a novice.
Yeah, so it's relationship based too. It'll be very important to be aware of the competency level and comfort level of the skill set in your team given in each circumstance.
Yep.
So I just want to wrap up here and share with you the reading list, and then open up again to the gallery view so we can have a few minutes for Q&A. We've just got about 8 minutes before the hour ends, and we'll send this out. If you maybe recognize some of these wonderful books that are contributing to the concepts behind this module and part of the workout, Management 3.0 workout. One of my favorites is the Reinventing Organizations. Just love that one. And I think we have on the next just another review of where you can get your own set of Delegation Poker. They're available for download on the Management 3.0 website. You can print them out. You can order them, the professional, card copy, or just make your own. And they're available for free for the print your own kind in PDF. And so Alex and I, we mentioned we're both Management 3.0 facilitators, and so we'll leave you with our contact information, but then also, of course, we have a few minutes for Q&A, and we will also be sending out a recording. We'll have to do the editing and make it nice and easy to view. But please do tweet to us, connect with us on LinkedIn. If you have questions later, if you run an experiment with your team and want to report how it went, or we can go through kind of a retrospective with you, that's also really of interest for me. I speak for myself. I don't know, Alex. And so any questions, or feel free to add them to chat. I see, okay, a few of you have to drop off. That's totally fine. Thank you for being here. How do you decide when to apply this? Great question. So manager to team direct reports is straightforward. But what about cross-functional teams having many supporting roles? This is challenging.
Yeah. So it obviously depends a lot on the team and the nature of work that they're doing. But I guess first and foremost, I would say that the team first needs to be bought into this model in general and understand that there's a need for something like this. Obviously, like many things, you can't just drop a deck of cards on the table and say, hey, this is going to solve our problems. There's got to be some desire to change. So that's key. Beyond that, the way I would approach it would be to either have someone who's a formal leader in the group. So if it's say it's a Scrum team, I'm guessing, hopefully I'm not wrong, but I'm guessing there's probably some people with a software background on here if we're talking about agile organizations. It's probably someone like a Scrum master on the team, someone who's really a facilitator for the team and a coach. I would look to someone like that to potentially sort of foster the process of of bringing these into the team and helping them understand here's our gaps in communication, probably via a retrospective. Here are some of the pitfalls that we encountered. What's a model that we could use to prevent this from happening? And then you could bring something like this in. If you don't have a role like that, my initial reaction would be to find someone on the team who's sort of a trusted, organic leader, someone who's not a manager, but someone who has leadership traits and has proven him or herself to be able to lead the team through decisions, and have that person get familiar with this and try to figure out a way to help the team realize, you know what, we need something like this. Let's use delegation poker, or let's make a delegation board. I think that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, and I think also that's why the delegation boards are kind of maybe a first step for kind of introducing it. It's very visual, or even just, like Alex said, take a bunch of these cards and put them up on a whiteboard or a wall with tape or a magnet. And people are going to ask, oh, what are these about? And then you can start to explain them, and then people that are against it, you'll get a sense of that, and people that are a little intrigued want to know more. So I think just opening up the dialogue and giving the opportunity for them to get a little interested. And, the way I was thinking too, I'd approach it is like speaking about, well, I really value, good communication, and I really value the work that your team is contributing to this project. And I want to make sure I can do the best to facilitate clarity around delegation. I went to this webinar and they have this interesting deck of cards. Do you want to look at this with me? Something like this, Other comments, I'm welcome to hear the different insights from the group. Durgesh, it looks like you have to drop off. Have a lovely evening. Get some rest. Oh, no, you were raising your hand. You want to comment? Okay.
I have a question.
Please stay.
So I was on mute. I didn't want to disturb that. Okay. So I have a question here. We have the similar situation, where we have direct reporters, managers, and we're still the traditional hierarchical mode, but still we are trying to get into the agile transformation. We are trying, but we cannot move the roles, instantly. We have to think of some ways wherein we can engage our managers. We started calling them as an agile managers, and how they can enable team, how they can help team in coming up this delegation stuff. But sometimes what I found is they themselves find it to be a little unsafe in terms of delegation, when they feel like, okay, if I'm delegating, or if I'm giving up all of the stuff to the team or the team leads or whoever, they feel uncomfortable doing so. They don't feel, they didn't, most probably I can say they didn't get such sort of trust that, yes, if I'm giving this delegation to the team members or individuals, how they're gonna do this, how they're gonna perform it. So I'm not sure how to bring up that trust level. I mean, because unless they see the results, they don't trust it. So the value they want to see first, instead of they get started on this workshop or start delegating the things to the individuals. So that's one of the challenge we are facing. So I mean, if you guys can give us some idea how we can.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's so often what happens, they want to see the results before you start experimenting. So, I mean, the one thing that is useful is that, these are small, really low budget, practically free, you just need a printer and some ink, experiments that, you're not hiring a management change consulting launch project. This is something that can be done in small little iterations and for no cost. So that might be an angle to emphasize. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd agree with that. And then Durgesh, the other kind of thing there is that the trust is really a fundamental piece of this. So if there's no trust, I got to think that it's either because there's either a reason that there's no trust, in that maybe the team hasn't delivered or something like that, so the managers have a kind of a bad taste in their mouths, or the team simply hasn't had the opportunity to sort of prove themselves, if you will, and show like, hey, we're pretty good. You can actually delegate stuff to us, and we'll take care of business. So depending on where excuse me, where the sort of underlying problem is there, that might help come up with a way to start building that trust. Because I think you're right in starting there, because if the delegation poker and having a model for delegating is going to do absolutely nothing if there's not a willingness to delegate, and there's not going to be that willingness unless there's a level of trust there. So I would tend to think you need some opportunity for the team to sort of demonstrate to themselves that that they can be delegated to, that they're performing. If they've already done that and the managers just aren't observant and they're not seeing that their teams are great, then I would say that's your starting point. Get your managers to open up a little bit and just try a small experiment, like Vanessa said, of one small task, one little activity, a little piece of a project that can be broken off and delegated to the team.
I'm gonna just to give a little visual here.
Yeah.
Do you know
But,
oh, go ahead. I'll jump in a minute.
Yeah. So actually, the one you said, in agile teams, we feel like, okay, every time a team cannot get success, right? They have failures, they get failures. And that really, when it comes to managers who are really, really very much concerned about the deliverable stuffs, I think they feel little, backward in terms of delegating, when they feel like, as an agile practitioner, we feel, yes, faster failure is a good thing to learn, right? It's a good part for the team. But at the same time, if the managers, if they have that traditional thought, the backward thought, so they don't feel comfortable in accepting such thing, that, okay, faster failure is something like, okay, keep doing, keep experimenting, let's have something in place and build up that trust. We have that mindset, but the person who has been in that experience of 12-15 years, who has been following that command and control system, they feel a little uncomfortable in accepting such stuff. So that's one of the challenge. But yes, we are trying our best. Hope for the good things come up.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple things. When I ran an experiment with my story cards, which I can send a link about that, there's moments where you're like, this isn't working, or this is hard, or, it's not taking off like I wanted it. And I just kept on telling myself, this is an experiment. I don't know what the results are going to be. I only know I'm going to learn. And that, in those moments of doubt, helped keep my motivation up. And the other thing, are you familiar with these cards, the moving motivators, Durgesh? Have you seen these? Yeah.
Yes, we have been.
Oh, great. Yeah. So, when you're talking about trust, we could go high level and laser focus into what are the values that are motivating the management team, and open up a dialogue there. And you can do the different activities to see, well, if we make this change, will this increase your motivation or decrease it? And motivation is obviously linked right back towards engagement, the $1 million word. So that could be another thing. But I would say just keep communicating with us and, letting us know what's the situation, and happy to kind of dialogue further. But really great for, your pioneering and dedication to, that's the whole, right? Margaret Mead said we shouldn't, question whether or not a small group of determined individuals can change the world. And that's actually who does. So stay strong.
Yep. And just last question. Sorry about that. There was a strong question that was put up by management, that why you are bringing up this delegation poker when we have RESI matrices in place. We have RESIs in place, which is very much decided sitting together that, okay, these are the things that how we are going to do, is responsible, accountable, and for what and all. So why do we need this delegation poker? So that was one of the question that was put forward, but I was not able to answer them because they had a very good way of doing things in RESI. So how we can justify that, how it's very much different?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the books may talk a little bit about how, sorry, some of Jürgen's books may talk about how how to compare against a RACI matrix. I don't recall. My initial reaction though is that these goofy little cards with the faces on them and one word is way more clear and understandable than a RACI matrix. Not that a RACI matrix is complicated or anything, but it doesn't. I personally don't think that it's directly as understandable to, hey, you're going to do this. You're doing this thing. I'm your manager, and we're going to do a 3. It's a consult. I can have a really, really clear definition of what consult means, and you and I know exactly what the expectations are. With a RACI matrix, I personally think it gets more confusing, and maybe I'm just one person who thinks that. I know the RACI matrix is a well-established tool, but I think the delegation cards are much more clear for that conversation of that very specific delegation conversation.
Yep. Okay.
And conversely, I guess to give some credit, some counterpoints to the RACI matrix, and if you're going to have this conversation, you don't want to totally pull the rug out from under the RACI matrix. I think the RACI matrix is probably fine for like a different sort of level of discussion. So if you're talking about a project as a whole and who's responsible and accountable and all that for different parts of the project, or different parts of a system or whatever you're talking about, I think that's fine. And then say, yep, we've got the RACI matrix for this conversation. We have delegation poker, though, for this individual conversation of me addressing my team. When I address my team, I'm going to use delegation poker because they understand it better than a RACI matrix.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Great.
So that was all I have. Thanks so much. Especially at this moment, it's something like 11:37 p.m. I'm still in office. Even one of my friend Ankur Nag is in office. It's really interesting. And I'd like to thank Vanessa and Alex. Thank you so much. And if you have been asking for feedback, definitely we are going to share this on LinkedIn. It was really great. As you said, it's a 7, so we are part of it. That was really great. Thank you. Looking forward for some more sessions. If you can have it, that will really help us.
Great, Durgesh. I really appreciate you being here and contributing. That makes for a fruitful learning experience for myself and everyone, I think. So I just want to be respectful. It's about 8 minutes past. We should drop off here. Additional questions, comments, you have our contact here. If you have feedback, please share it in private message or publicly. I'm open to both. And also, if you have other dilemmas you're facing that you'd like us to maybe organize an additional session or coffee chat opportunity, hangout, those are all possible as well. Great. So stay tuned for more, and we'll send out the recording. Have a lovely rest of your week. Bye-bye.